So today what I actually want to discuss is a different concept which I've been working on since some time now, and I want you all to also research on that. The basic concept is when we see when we look at a planet, right, we are looking at it primarily as lord of which house. Okay, so let's say we are looking at Kalpurush Kundali, we are saying Venus will be the second and seventh lord, or if we are talking about Mercury, we'll say third and sixth lord, so on and so forth. But what came to my mind some time back is the basic Karak Tattva of that, firstly, and secondly is what Tattva it is getting there, what element it is getting over there, will hold a very important component in the analysis, beyond which you can look at what is the house lord. Okay, because in very simple words, why I'm trying to advocate this is that if you consider, let us say there is one bad element, uh, let's say Gabbar Singh, okay, and you have put him in a monastery. So maybe he's behaving himself, but he will first behave in his own manner, which is being a dacoit, and then as a part of the monastery, let us say. So, anyways, based on that, uh, this I'm not talking. We'll be talking in terms of JAMA code. So if you see this chart which I've shared over here, okay, I'll quickly run you through. This entire application has been made by Anish, and we are not sharing the application. So that is the क्या बोलते हैं उसको, what is that thing called? Caveat, the preface, okay. But I'll give you a blank this thing wherein you can use and keep filling in. So the basic chart, I'll explain that to you later. Just remind me on that. So here, if you see this yellow, this thing orange one, this is your Udayam, okay, and Udayam has been placed here. Now in this, if you see, you can immediately make out, because of, see, this inner circle which we are calling, this green one, are your JAMA planets, and this outer circle which is white are the transit planets. So what we have achieved over here, or rather what Anis has achieved over here, is basically at one shot you understand where Udayam sits, in which pada it sits, which nakshatra it sits, which rashi it sits, how far is it from Venus, how far is it from Mercury, and if Mercury is approaching Udayam, Udayam is, sorry, ulta bola, Mercury is approaching Udayam, Venus has gone away from Udayam, or if you look at Kavipu, if you see here, immediately from here you can see without the arrows only because of the position. Over here, if you see, Kavipu is approaching Jupiter. Correct? दिख रहा है यहाँ से? Kavipu is approaching Jupiter. And from here, Mars is approaching Kavipu. Or if you see in the big chart, you can immediately realize that a debilitated Mars is approaching Kavipu. And Kavipu is approaching Udayam. Jupiter, sorry. Okay. So basically, this is the sequence. Now, this is a hypothetical one. This is not any case. The second one which we have got to do this is a case. So what I'm trying to get at is, which I've always been saying, that just answering the question doesn't solve the case, because that fellow will obviously have 10 other questions to ask. So if we look at this hypothetical case and put in that theorem which I'm trying to advocate, let's see what happens. So for example, firstly we are saying that Mercury is approaching Udayam. Okay. Now Mercury we have to see from two angles. One is basically Mercury is seated in what? So Mercury basically is 1, 2, 3, which is air element, FeAr, and Fe. So it is basically a rule of air and earth. अभी जरा थोड़ा सा ध्यान दो. It's easy, but we have not done this too many times. You remember that FeAr, 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 right? So basically, Mercury has a element of air and also earth. Now here there is one small catch, which I don't know whether I discussed earlier. When you are looking at, let's say, Kalpurush Kundli, okay, when you are talking of a younger sibling, it will take air element and come here. But when you are talking of, let's say, Rogrin Ripu, litigation, competitive wins, whatever, that sort of a case, it will take this, that is sixth also, and third also. Why is that? That is because this happens to be the Mool Trikon Rashi of Mercury. I'll give you the table also later if you want. I've made a table. In fact, we'll be adding that here subsequently. So basically, if this Mercury, now just forget a Udayam, look at this as Udayam only, just now. Okay, for discussion sake, I should have put it here. Just consider this as Udayam. So Mercury is in Udayam and coming towards Udayam. So let's say this Udayam was here, let us say. Huh? So what are we taking? If you're talking about something related to effort or dhairya or signature or deals, then we are looking at only air element coming to fire element. Correct? All of you getting what I'm saying? If we are looking at, let us say, sixth house of, let's say, competitive wins, that fellow has gone for appearing for some exam, competitive exam. So then we will consider earth and air approaching fire. Now the concept which comes to my mind, I don't know whether it is there in the books or what, I have not read it, but it's just a thought which came into my mind. If you look at fire and air coming onto fire and fire coming onto air will have a different connotation, right? So if you have a fire over there and air, so it's like saying diya jal karke buja diya. So air can douse a fire. Air can also be oxygen which can ignite it further. So I'll take a different session on tattvas, but basically, like I said, the fire tattva here, as compared to the fire tattva over here, as compared to the fire tattva here, has different elements. Like this fire is a destruction and recreation ka fire. Okay, so it destroys something and it recreates something also. This fire basically is the fire of direction, disha. It is a light which lights up in the dark to show your direction. And this fire is the fire of the Guru because it is Jupiter, this thing. So you just hold on for a minute. Manas is going to open the door. Till this point, if you want to ask anything, ask.
जो ज्ञान स्टार्ट है तो
आली तर
मान
लवकर येतं तुझं थांबलोय मानसी तुझं थांबलोय sorry. So who was asking Swati? Now what happened?
तो अमीर सर जो बना रहे हैं ये वाला
Your,
सॉफ्टवेयर में बना रहे हैं जैसे मान लीजिए हमने
your voice is not clear. I don't know whether my this thing. Talk again. Tell me again.
अभी आ रही है
हाँ muffled आवाज आ रहा है.
तो जो है ये सॉफ्टवेयर इसको बिल जैसे ही हम डाले तो ये डेटा इसके अकॉर्डिंग आ जाए पूरे
I can't hear you. It's coming muffled. नेपाली भाषा में बात करें. बांग्लादेशी भाषा लग रहा है. नहीं वो नहीं.
कर
बाद में फोन पे बात करते. नहीं. Okay, so again I just repeat. I didn't really manage it on there. So basically, when we are talking of, come fast, Swati. We are waiting for you. Anyway, 1 minute. So there, आ गए. Okay, now talk if possible. अगर मर्द है तो बात कर. स्वाति अगर मर्द है तो बात कर. नहीं है मर्द. Okay, ठीक. बाद में. So basically, what I was trying to tell you is that we have to understand the characteristics of the tattva also. Each tattva is also different. Like for example, this is a chara rashi mein fire element. This is a sthira rashi mein fire element, and this is a dual rashi, dviswabhav rashi mein fire element. So even if you see it from a different angle, this fire is in the chara rashi mein, it is moving very fast. Look at it that way. This is in the sthira rashi, so it is stagnant. So it is like, maybe you can look at it like a diya. This you can look like a oven ka fire. This you can look at like a diya ka, like a light diya ka thing. And this you can look at like a torch, let us say, because torch can go left, right, up, down, whatever, something like that you can look. So basically, coming back to this Mercury, which is coming into Mercury का basic स्वभाव क्या है? तो Mercury is basically duality. So द्वि स्वभाव in a way. Okay. Mercury is also what is it called? Khada Anda, like what it is called in Lal Kitab. Behrupia. So where it will go, you cannot know. Mercury is also, then all the other characters come into play, brain, and then all those things like that. So basically, if we are talking of something related to let us say dhairya or some effort, then we are looking at air element coming onto fire. Now let's just take that one example and then I'll go ahead what I'm trying to say. So air element coming onto fire, and this fire is basically a fire which is very strong. It is like a bhatti, let us say. Barabar? So it can nash something, may destroy something, and it is capable of recreating. This is the characteristic of this fire. So if we say air is coming onto this, it can also mean that there is a huge amount of air का blast onto that and it can douse the fire. Or there is जैसे वो भट्टी में ऐसा करके फूक फूक करते हैं and then that fire ignites. You know how they do in that भट्टी. So वो भी हो सकता है. Now which one of that is happening will have to be seen over here. I don't think I can zoom in, but if you see this, I've sent you the chart, so later on देखो. So this Mercury is first of all coming towards the Udayam. So it is what is giving the result. Now if you see here, it is seated in the sixth pada, Navmanch ka. It is seated in Venus ka Bharani Nakshatra, and it is seated in the Mars ka Rashi. Okay. Now this arrow, I started using these arrows also. So it is going towards its debilitation point. Now this application will tell you in how much time. So if this is 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In 7 pada, it is going to its point of debilitation. It is also the Badak Lord. Correct? It is a Badak Lord. So first of all, Badak Lord means creating Badha. Debilitated means it is getting weak, or it is creating us. Let's not say it's getting weak. It is creating weakness related to its Karak-tattva. You know that something which came just now to my mind is we are saying Mercury is getting weak. How can Mercury get weak? Mercury, you cannot make a planet weak, right? So what comes to my mind just now is the Karak Tattva related to that will become weak. If you're looking at third house of Dhairya related to some signature of a document or something like that, then that is becoming weak. He might be incapable of doing that signature, let us say. Why? Because this Mercury is seated in the sixth pada. Sixth is Rog, Rin, Ripu. So maybe there is some rin on him, there is some debt on him, or he is rogue, he is unwell because of that. You understand? We are going to a very micro level over here. Then it goes to Bharani, Venus. So Venus is what? Venus could mean a spouse, Venus could mean Lakshmi, which is wealth. Venus is the natural second lord of the family. So some female in the family, which is this, may be unwell over here, related to Mars. It could be blood pressure related or some Mars related. This. By the way, suddenly I remembered I've enrolled for one course where that person across 1.5 months daily is going to teach astrology in tandem with yoga, yogasana, chakra healing, and Ayurvedic components. So, I think that will be a major breakthrough for the remedies. Like, for example, suppose in this case, let's say Mercury has to be balanced off. Then which mudras you will do? Which chakra healing you will do? Which Ayurvedic khana pina jo hai wo, which one you do, which you will not do. So it's a intensive 1.5 month course. Once I go through that, I'll share the details with you guys. So again, coming back to this, what I'm trying to say is, let us say this is, or you can say keep this only as the Udar. Let's keep this only as the Udar. The same case. Abhi isme also, if you see, relationship is strong, but it has moved away. If you see, it is almost in the 12th house. Can you see that? It is just hanging on a stick. And if you remember that Bal Avastha, Yuva Avastha, Vruddha Avastha, you know that, right? 0 to 5, 5 to 25, 25 to 30. So here if you see, it is in the Vruddha Avastha. Even though it is in an exalted Rashi, it is at a fag end of that. So maybe, I don't know, it's just giving me a gut feeling that this hypothetical case may be related to somebody whose relationship with the spouse or the business partner is going down, or business is going down. Because if you see, Mercury is also business. Mercury in his case is the 7th lord of career, 10th from 10th. if you are looking at this. Now we look at it in a different manner. This is a water sign, water tattva, and if we look at 7, let's take this as a business thing. So 7th and 4th is basically coming on to this. So earth and air are both coming on to water. What can we say? So if it's clear water, because Jupiter is oxygen, if you remember. So it is clear water, oxygenated water. You put earth onto that, you put mitti onto that, what happens? Chikhal ho jata hai. And what happens if air comes onto that? It will make the chikhal spread all over. Chikhal means kichad. It goes all over the place. Okay. Now you look at it from a different angle. This Mercury, which is basically Karak Tattva of Mercury, is basically intellect and communication. Okay. It is the Badhak. It's the 4th lord in this case, which is home atmosphere. It is the 7th lord of spouse. It is a basic Karak Tattva of communication. So communication related to home atmosphere and spouse, or mother and spouse, whatever you want to say, is basically debilitated or going towards debilitation. Means the Karak Tattva of Mercury has become weak for this person, communication. It is also a Badhak, it's creating an obstacle. And then you look at this vertical connect over here. So Mercury is seated in the 6th Navmanch Pada, which is basically Rog, Ring, Ripu. It is seated in Venus, with some female possibly. It is also the natural 2nd and 7th lord, which is the natural Marak. And it is seated in Mars, which is also the Karak of dispute, oblique, rogue. Like Saturn is a chronic rogue, Mars is a normal rogue, whatever it is. So this tells a story by itself only. If suppose the question is, what is this person's, or you want to analyze it. So let's not look at the question, because question aata hai, uska answer aa jata hai. You need to know what the thing is. Now, for example, let us say he is talking about his business, and his business ka lord, which is Mercury, has gone and sat in the 8th to itself, but which is the 2nd house. You understand? So basically this, इसका repercussion क्या है कि उसका business अगर problem हो रहा है तो इसका problem क्या हो रहा है? Are you understand what I'm saying? It's a little complicated thing, but if you listen to this video again, we'll do that live case also after this, though I have not analyzed it from this angle. Anyone not understanding this? You'll have to listen to this video, I think, again. Just, हाँ Shikha.
So is it that we can say that there might be problem in business related to money or income?
No, see, basically that's what I'm trying to say. It's a little क्या बोलते हैं, googly over here. कि basically he has come with a question कि मेरा business नहीं चल रहा है, क्यों नहीं चल रहा है, बराबर? So it could be relationship or communication with his wife, which is the seed behind that thing. Because ये जो आ रहा है, the funny thing is this is coming towards this. Now Mercury happens to be the 4th and 7th lord also. Now if it's a business thing, 4th का becomes what? It is 10th from 10th. उसका एक career ही हो गया. ये जो 7th business, this 7th is what? 10th from 10th. This is the 10th house. No? So 10th from 10th becomes career, and 10th from 7 also becomes 4. So in a way you look at it that way, or you look at it as a Sukhastan and look at this as career. Or look at career and look at the 10th from career, which is the status of the career. 10th is also status. No? So basically, if you remember the chart which I had given earlier, I had shared that chart where what happens. So if you look at 7th house, I don't know whether you can see it here. I had given a chart like this, where all the house activation ka chart, I've shared it with you on this one. So basically, if you see 7th house, which is career, or let's say 10th house, 10th house, which is career, 10th house ke 8th house mein the 5th house is getting activated. वो छोड़ो अभी, that might get a little complicated. But what I'm trying to come to, or what I'm researching on just now, and I wanted to work on those lines, is basically if he says his career is bad, so let us say 10th lord पकड़ लो, Jupiter, करेक्ट. अभी जुपिटर जाके बैठा किधर, 4th हाउस में, 4th lord इधर आ रहा है. So basically the career, let us say this fellow's career, okay, so I think it's opening up a new case only. If he talks about a career कि मेरा career नहीं चल रहा है बराबर, okay, so in fact I think it is getting a repercussion of one guy. Swati knows who that person I'm talking about. When I tell this, Swati will understand. I'm not opening up the name and all that, but this fellows, oh my god, it's exactly here. You know about moon, उसके mother का, Swati, or I know more than you. Swati had recommended somebody. So without giving any names or anything, I will tell you this person is settled abroad at one place, and his wife and son are settled in some other place. It's in the Middle East basically. Okay, and this fellow's visa has gone for a toss. Because of that, ये लोगों का, because they are dependent on him, इनका रहना उधर problem हो गया है. And he's come to India and his visa has got this thing. So unless he gets his passport renewed and the visa thing, he cannot go back. Till then he has stuck, that sort of a thing. And when I analyzed it, I realized that his behavior with his mother was the cause of all this thing happening. And if you see here, moon is going towards debilitation. Can you see this over here? So chal, let's take this as that case and see. I don't know. So Mercury is what? Mercury is document. Mercury is document. So basically his third house का problem है, let us say, or his career का problem है. So career is what Jupiter over here in this case. Correct. But career, like I'm saying, कारक तत्व पकड़ लो तो Saturn ही है. So Saturn is seated in its own Rashi. So now actually I've started putting a plus here also, which you'll see in the next case. So Saturn per se is safe. So his career is safe. Correct. Career is safe. Career is seated in the third.
Swami, why are you saying career is safe?
Saturn is the कारक of career. It's in its own Rashi.
Own Rashi.
And Saturn, if you see this now, I can't zoom in, but I think you'll be able to see it later. This is in the third pada. So that is document. That is in moon. Okay. So moon abhi mother pakad lo for the time being. And it is in Saturn, which is Pida Karak. So the thing is, I asked him, how is your behavior? He says, I always end up fighting with her only. Okay. And on top of that, abhi uska 7.5 bhi chal raha hai. So that moon Saturn connect here also we can see over here in this case. Are you getting? So basically the Mercury, which is the Karak Tattva, is basically kya? Document. That is showing weak. It is uska Karak Tattva kam de raha hai. Something related to document is not working out. It is also causing a badha. It is causing a badha. Abhi idhar dekho kya hai? 6th house. So rogue, rin, ripu, litigations, wo sab hai. So basically it means a disconnect in a way. 6th is also disconnect. It is seated in Venus, which is spouse, and it is in Mars, which is the karak of job. So job is causing a disconnect with the spouse, and this Mercury, which is the document, is losing its effect and going here. So as a remedy, basically Mercury needs to be made stronger. So Mercury is what? Mercury is pigeons or sparrows. And Mercury is also what? Green gram. So giving green gram to pigeons and this thing will also make this balance this off. Okay. We'll stop at this. We'll go to the case now.
With his mother?
So that is there now. For example, in the 10th house of career, moon is seated over there. Correct. Moon, if you see, is seated in the 6th from its mool Rashi. Can you see that moon Rashi is here, right? Moon is seated in the 6th from itself. So again, dispute, jhagada. Moon, if you see, is here in the first this thing of Mars, which is jhagada, dispute. It is seated in Ketu, which is a cut. And Jupiter, the Bhagya. The Bhagya is getting dominated by the cut because of the dispute with the mother. And the moon is also getting debilitated over here. So fire में बैठा हुआ है water element. So water element has come on fire. So the fire which should be there. Fire doesn't mean jalana. Fire can mean also mean that relationship is alive, like you can say ना. तो उसके ऊपर पानी डाल दिया तो वो बुझ रहा है. It's a total offbeat concept. Is it getting too complicated for you all? और समझ में आ रहा है जनरली? हाँ, महेश, you all are understanding? महेश, Shipra.
Yeah, ma'am.
Shipra, you are getting it. Sankalp, Yuda, Ashwini, Chitran, Swati, Praveen, all getting it. It's a totally radically different approach, which suddenly I'm sure Rahu only put in my head. Because kaise hai na, I'll tell you why this guy. If you all know, I don't know how many of you know the calculation of Udayam and calculation of Jama planets. There is actually no direct connection because the Udayam is based on that day ka planet at 00 degrees. So today is Sunday, so Ravivar. So at 6 a.m. at this point, sun will be there at 00. बराबर. And for 1.5 hours it will rule. Then sun का next वाला जो भी है snake, that will come on, it will go. So that goes as per the day. And if you see the what is it called, Udayam, sorry, I spoke about Jama planet. Jama planet, today's sun will be here. And if you do the calculation of Udayam, that is based on the degree of the sun at that moment at that place. So have you understood? Calculation of Udayam, Udayam idhar aa raha hai, idhar aa raha hai, idhar aa raha hai, idhar aa raha hai, kidhar aa raha hai, that depends on latitude or longitude of the sun. And the Jama planet का position depends on which ये है क्या बोलते हैं which this thing is there, which day it is. So that got me thinking कि why are we saying Venus is the third lord over here? It cannot be the third lord, right? Because उसका और उदयम का संबंध ही नहीं. It's like saying you take the ascendant. Today let us say ascendant is here, let us say. And we are saying Venus is the 11th lord. उसका और उसका calculation का कोई संबंध ही नहीं ना. So basically Udayam and Venus, or rather Udayam and the Jama planets do not have any calculation kind connection. Udayam is dependent on the longitude of sun and Venus is dependent on the day. So what came to our mind is, which I have been telling you since last week, कि Venus, you have to look at Kalpurush Kundi as the base and consider Venus as the second and natural second and seventh lord and the Karak Tattva of Venus and the natural Karak Tattva which is earth and air of Venus, and also the element of that Rashi, whether it is a Sthira Rashi or whether it is a Chara Rashi. What is that heavy है ना concept? It's a little heavy concept. Let's take up a case. Next case we'll see, and let's try that. So this was the case which I had shared last time, where the person had asked whether this fellow will survive or not. Correct? You remember this case? PMT करके I had shared. Now look at this case with that same concept. Udayam किधर है? Udayam is here. Let's sorry. Udayam is here. हो रहा है. Udayam is here. If you can see from here only, you can make out that moon is coming towards Udayam and Udayam is moon is coming towards Udayam, correct? And moon is going towards its own Rashi, so it is positive. Now look at the Jama planets based on their natural Karak Tattva, the natural Rashi which they use, and basically the tattvas which they are getting in. So if we have to basically see what is happening to him, if you remember, first house is health, wealth, happiness of the person, which is also related to his sort of well-being. So if we say moon is coming over there, what is the basic Karak Tattva of moon? Can somebody tell me? So now you all analyze. I am prompting.
water mother, water mother,
नहीं but उसके उसके जीने या मरने से वाटर और मदर का कुछ लेना देना नहीं है. Pick up the right one. हाँ शिखा.
milk,
Milk. नहीं. We are,
अच्छा
Mind,
खाने पीने के
one
लिए,
minute.
Emotions.
emotions and mind.
emotion,
No.
Food.
water,
The question is
Food.
basically whether he is going to survive or not. Moon is what? Moon is
life,
Fast.
up,
Fast.
up and down. No? Fast भी है, but it is undecided. No? Uncertainty.
Changing. Changing.
So uncertainty. Now see this line बोलो या something I like to name it or something. Maybe link बोलो या उसका connect बोलो. So moon is seated in sun. अभी I'm looking at a basic character. तो sun is what? Life force. So uncertainty in life force in Venus. Venus is the natural second and seventh lord, which is Marak. Is again seated in Sun, which is Jeev Karak. Is Atma Karak, the life force. So Udayam, which is moon, which is the Udayam itself, is seated. Uncertainty is seated in life force. Is seated in Venus, which is basically the second and seventh lord, which is again Marak, is again seated in Sun, which is again life force. But it is going towards positivity. Why? This positive means it is either in its Swarashi or going. This arrow is trying to tell us that it is going towards its Swarashi. So it is good. So that is point one. Now look at it from another angle. इसका भाग्य क्या है? इसका भाग्य इधर है. वहां पर कविपु बैठे हैं. Now because of the placement that I've done over here, you will immediately realize that Mars is coming towards Kavipu and Kavipu is catching Jupiter. So Mars is what? Mars is the basically first and eighth lord. So again, first means the fire. If you remember, I told you this is the fire element which is making and destructing. And Mars per se is the fire and it is seated in its own house. So the fire to live. That is what when I asked the person who had asked me on behalf of the vision, I said the fire to live seems. If you remember, that I had written over there, the will to live has some uncertainty. ऐसा कुछ मैंने लिखा था. So basically, the fire which is there is going towards Kavipu. And if you see Kavipu, Kavipu is in the sixth Navmanj, which is rogue. Okay, if you go Kavipu idhar up, is my mouse moving? No. It is seated in Saturn, which is again Pida Karak and Karak of longevity. And it is seated in Jupiter, which is Jeev Karak. Correct? It is seated in that sequence. So Kavipu is sort of connecting to sixth of rogue, Saturn, which is basic, what is it called? Again, bigger chronic rogue or Pida Karak, and Jupiter Jeev Karak. So Kavipu is hitting that, and Kavipu is finally going and hitting Jupiter. So Jupiter ka Karak Tattva in this case, because it's a medical case, becomes Jeev Karak. Jeev, the thing. That also, if you see, is the Hora. That also you see if it's going towards its point of debilitation. Can you see that? And Mercury, which is seated there in the seventh house, which is Marak, second and seventh. So just now what is happening is the Udayam Lord is seated in the second house, which is Marak, and seated in the seventh house. Sorry, the 12th and the third Lord is seated in the seventh house of Marak. Now there is one more dictum which I am working on. When you say Udayam over here, Udayam ka second house is this. But for the Jama planet, this is the second house. Are you getting the thing? Sorry, my mouse was not working. Basically, if this is the Udayam, this is the second house. So Moon is seated in the second house. But Moon Jama planet is moving towards its second house. Because from here, Moon will move this way, no? So that is another thing which needs to be sort of taken into account. But let's not get into that. Basically, मेरा क्या रहता है, continue 24/7, some calculation is going on in my mind, and then I just push it on to you guys. So if it's complicated, then let it be at that point. But if you see that dictum which I told you in the morning, Mars, which is the fire, seated in the first fire Rashi, which is destruction and this thing. So it is basically part of the crematorium, by the way. The fire element in R1 is considered as crematorium. Why? Because वहाँ that person का नाश हो जाता है, and that is the start of his new life. So that fire is very strong over here. And that is going towards Kavipu. And Kavipu, if you look at this vertical link, is seated in sixth, which is again the Karak only. Basically, is sixth is rogue. Saturn is longevity. And Jupiter is Jeev Karak. So Kavipu is hitting rogue, is hitting longevity, is hitting Jeev. So this Jupiter which you see, which is the father of all this, is moving towards a debilitation point over here. If you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then sixth way it is in the debilitation point.
Sir, since the question is about longevity, can we just straight away pick the Karkatva like Saturn? Okay, though it is kind of appearing as exalted, it is sitting in Chitra, which is ruled by Mars,
Correct.
and it is first and eighth lord, which is entry and exit kind of, and it's sitting in Ashwini, Ketu, exit.
Correct. Correct. Even here, if you see that Saturn, which is the Karak of longevity, is strong.
Yeah.
But it is seated in seventh, which is again a Marak.
Marak,
Which is seated in Mars, which is again the first and eighth lord. When we say first and eighth, first is his health, wealth, everything. But it is also carrying the energy of the eighth house. No? That is
yeah.
And again it is seated in Venus. So from all angles, if you see, it is looking little difficult. So I had calculated some 19 days or something like that. I don't know. In that analysis I put over there. 19 days from today, it's looking a little dicey.
But actually, this is giving a very clear picture, sir. This is like to the detail microscopic view. But if we just catch the Karkatva of that particular question, I think we are able to connect the dots very quickly.
Yeah. So that is what I'm trying to say, that we are looking at Mars as, in this case, the 11th and the 5th lord. Now you look at it from that angle also, it is 11th is the Ichhaputi and 5th is recovery. Ichhaputi related to the recovery is also going to Kavitu. You look at it from the conventional way also, that is correct. But I am trying to look at Mars as fire seated in the crematorium ka Rashi, which is a Chara Rashi, which is moving fast, is going towards Kavitu. Alright. Shipra, you are asking something? Shipra? You raised your hand. My net is bad or your net is bad? Shipra, can you hear me? Am I audible, Mahesh?
Yes, was.
You lost it. Can you hear me? Hello. There's some problem in my internet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
I think some net ka problem, right? Shipra, you asked something, you raised your hand.
No, it's fine. I think I'll have to hear the video again and I'll try to answer.
Where are you going confused you after, then I'll quickly draw the line over there.
So,
See, I'll tell you very simple what I'm trying to say. Till Udayam is here. So Mars happens to be what the 10th lord and the 5th lord. Sorry, you can see now. This is the Udayam. So Mars is basically what the 10th lord and the 5th lord. And
yes.
that's what we normally say. And it is seated in the 10,000 going towards Kavitu. I am advocating a total different concept, but forget a 10th and this, because your Udayam and the Jama actually do not have a direct connection. So basically what I'm saying is just look at the Karak Tattva of Mars, basic Karak Tattva of Mars, look at the Kal Purush Kundli ka Mars ka dispositor किधर किधर है, and look at the Tattva, fire Tattva, earth Tattva, air Tattva, water Tattva, and what it is doing. So basically Mars, if you see over here, which is going towards Kavipu, which is hitting, it's like a billiard thing. So Mars per se is rogue, firstly. It is seated in the Rashi of fire, which is the crematorium. That is also one thing. It is very strong over there. So it is saying that the crematorium related fire is very strong over there. Now, this is, there is one deeper thing. I don't know whether I'll be able to explain to it. Look at it like a billiard theory. Kavipu is hitting the Jeev Karak. म्हणजे जीव को मार रहा है, बट वो कभी मारेगा जब ये इधर से वो कैरम का that striker comes and hits it, then it is going to hit it. Now if you see this is seated in the natural first Rashi of brain, of thoughts. If his thoughts are related to मुझे नहीं जीना है, so that sort of an energy, which is the first and eighth lord. First is health, wealth, happiness. Eighth is obstacles and problems. वो जाके जो स्ट्राइकर जाके कविपु को हिट करे, जो जाके जुपिटर को मारा, and that's the end of it. If he changes his thoughts of 1 and 8 as major transformation in his thoughts, then maybe that striker going and hitting Kavipu might not have such a bad repercussion over here. Because Saturn, which is the Karak of longevity, seated in the natural, this fellow's 4th house of Sukhastan, is exalted. Again, that has gone. Yeah, so basically what I was trying to say, I'll say it in a nutshell again. Look at the Karak Tattva of the planet. One, look at the basic Rashi, the natural Rashi lord which is taking, like Mars will be 1 and 8. Then see the Tattva, the elements of those Rashis. Four Tattva kaun se Rashi mein aa rahe? Fire is coming to water, or water is coming to fire, whatever it is. And then lastly, look at it as a dispositor as per the ascendant of the Udam. That's what I feel. So basically, if you see here, Mars, which is basically the natural first and the eighth lord. So first is the brain, eighth is the oblique, is obstacles or major transformations. That is coming. If you look at the lineup over here, it is again in 1. It is again in Ketu. So Ketu can again mean either a detachment or it can mean a spiritual sort of a mind. It detach yourself from that. And again Mars is rogue and seated in the thing of crematorium. So crematorium related thoughts, if he makes a major change, then that striker hits Kavipu in a different way. And Kavipu is a negative thing is it will destroy, and positive thing is it is trying to tell you a secret which you need to decode. So if you see here, Kavipu is in 6, which is rogue again, which is in Saturn, which can mean karma. It is in Jupiter, which means Jeev. So there is some secret which even this is trying to tell maybe. Right, so that's what I thought. So I'll post the video, you gotta go over it, and whichever cases you are solving, try to see it from this angle. I don't know, I'm getting that feeling that some new avenue might open. And ये blank बना के I'll send it to you all, so you all can on the computer or whatever just do those notations. Earlier, if you remember, I had made one thing physically. मैंने वो chess pawns जैसे बनाया था, red, green, blue, and I used to put it on that. You can try that out also. Okay, चलो मिलते हैं next time. Bye.
It's not.
Thank you, sir.